In competitive swimming, the difference between winning gold and maybe not even medaling often comes down to, well, tiny fractions of a second. It's incredible.
Absolutely. Blink and you miss it sometimes.
And nowhere is that speed, that precision, more just electric than in relay events. The start is everything.
The exchange?
But what actually makes for the best relay start? The fastest one. It's funny, despite all the elite competition, there hasn't really been a clear answer.
It is surprising, yeah. Lots of different styles out there.
Exactly. So today, for our deep dive, we're going to try and cut through some of that uncertainty. We're looking at a really fascinating new study that digs into the biomechanics, like what actually makes the fastest starts tick.
Okay.
The paper itself is titled, "What is the Best Step Technique for Swimming Relay Starts?" It's published in the Journal of Sports Science and Medicine. That's volume 24, pages 227 to 235.
Right.
And the authors are Santiago Veiga, Sebastian Fischer, Xiao, Jelena Stosic, Stefan Fuhrmann, Armin Kibele, and Claudia Braun. It went online June 1st, 2025.
Quite a team.
Yeah, and they looked at national and international level swimmers. So, really top-tier athletes.
Yeah.
It gives us a good window into what the very best are doing.
Definitely. Good data is key there.
So maybe first, to really get relay starts, we need to understand how they're different from, say, an individual race start. There's a fundamental rule difference, right?
Yeah, that's absolutely critical. It all comes down to the World Aquatics regulations. Yeah. So for an individual start, the swimmer has to be completely still on the block, no movement before the signal.
Right, dead still.
But for relays, and this is for swimmers 2, 3, and 4, they are allowed to make preparatory movements on the starting block before the incoming swimmer touches the wall.
Okay. So that changes everything.
It completely changes the game. It basically gives them a chance to, well, get a running start, almost. Yeah. They can generate some initial momentum before they actually launch themselves.
So that's the whole point then. Those little steps or arm swings you see, it's all about building a, horizontal impulse.
Exactly. It's physics, really. They're trying to apply force over time to get moving forward before they leave the block. The goal is a higher takeoff velocity than you could ever get from just a static push.
Makes sense. And I guess technology plays a role here, too. I remember hearing about new starting blocks a while back.
Oh, definitely. The big change was around 2008 with the Mega OSB-11 starting block. These have a much larger platform and, crucially, an adjustable backplate, like a kick plate.
Right, the wedge thing.
Yeah, that wedge. And that larger surface area, that adjustability, it really it opened the door for athletes and coaches to experiment with totally new ways to use that preparatory movement. More room to maneuver, basically.
So you've got this rule-allowing movement, you've got better blocks. You'd think by now, everyone would have figured out the single best way to do it.
You would think so.
Yeah.
But what's really interesting, and the study points this out, is that even at the very highest level, there's still no consensus. It's kind of wild.
Really? Like even at the Olympics?
Yeah, they looked at the Tokyo 2020 Games, the ones held in 2021, obviously. In the 4x100-meter relay finals, swimmers were using up to 5 different starting techniques.
5? Wow.
And get this, no single technique was used more than 40% of the time. So the world's absolute fastest swimmers are still doing different things on the block.
That's fascinating. It shows there's maybe more than one way to get off the blocks fast, or maybe people just stick with what they know.
Could be a bit of both. Personal preference, what feels comfortable, what they've trained for years. But this study, it tried to bring some hard science to it by really focusing on the 2 most common techniques you see.
Okay, so let's get into those. The study looked at the short step and the long step. Can you break those down for us? Like, what do they actually look like?
Sure. So the short step technique. Imagine the swimmer starts with one foot right at the front edge of the block. Their other foot is back on that adjustable plate, the wedge.
Okay.
Then, just before they go, that back foot quickly steps forward right next to the front foot. So they end up pushing off from a parallel stance, both feet near the front edge. It's a quick, kind of compact movement.
Got it. Short step, parallel feet push off, and the long step sounds, well, longer.
It is. It's quite different. For the long step, the swimmer actually starts with one foot behind the back plate altogether, maybe on the flat part of the block back there.
Oh, okay. Further back.
Yeah. And their other foot is on the inclined part of that back plate. Then, the key move, that rear foot, takes this big, sweeping, long step over the back plate, landing near the front edge of the block.
So it travels a lot further across the block.
Exactly. And when they take off, their feet are separated, one in front of the other.
Yeah.
It's much more like a track start, like a sprinter stance.
Okay, track start position for the long step, parallel for the short step. Big difference in movement. So, the million-dollar question, after all this analysis, did the study find a clear winner? Is one actually faster?
Well, this is probably the biggest headline from the research, yes. A very clear winner emerged. And interestingly, it was better across the board. Didn't matter if the swimmer was male or female.
Oh, really? Okay, don't leave us hanging. Which one?
The long step technique consistently produced faster results.
The long step. Wow. Okay, so consistently faster. How much faster are we talking? In swimming, even tiny margins are huge, right?
They're absolutely massive. The study measured times at 5 meters and 10 meters off the start. Swimmers using the long step were, on average, 0.09 seconds faster at the 5-meter mark.
900ths. That's significant.
It is. And what's maybe even more impressive is they held on to that exact same advantage, 0.09 seconds faster, all the way to the 10-meter mark as well.
Wow. So it's not just a quicker launch, it carries further into the swim.
Precisely. And like you said, 0.09 seconds. I mean, think about relay exchanges. That can easily be the difference between winning and losing or making the podium or not. It's a really meaningful performance gain.
Absolutely huge. Okay, so here's where it gets really interesting for me. Why? What is it about that long step motion that gives swimmers such a critical edge? What's the biomechanics behind it?
Yeah, this is the core of it. It really boils down to how they apply force and for how long. The study found several key things. First, and this might sound a bit weird at first, swimmers using the long step actually spent more time on the block before takeoff.
More time. Wouldn't you want to get off quicker?
You'd think so, but no. They spent about 0.11 seconds longer on the block on average. But that extra time isn't wasted. It actually allows them more time to generate force, to push against the block continuously.
Ah, okay, so it's not about the quickest departure, it's about the most powerful departure, built up over slightly more time.
Exactly, more time to load up and push. And that extra time translates directly into more speed before they even leave the block. The data showed they achieved 17% faster horizontal velocities while they were performing that long step.
17% faster during the step.
Yeah. And then, when their foot landed at the front after the step, their horizontal velocity was still 11% faster than the short step users. So they're carrying much more forward momentum into that final push-off phase.
Right, so they've already got more speed built up. I guess that allows for a bigger final push.
Precisely. Because they have that momentum, they can then apply significantly larger peak forces. The study measured maximal horizontal forces that were 24% greater for the long step.
24%. That's a massive difference in force.
Huge.
Yeah.
And their peak vertical forces were also 15% greater. So more force both forwards and upwards. And all of this adds up naturally to much higher velocities at the moment of takeoff.
Okay, so what were the takeoff speeds like?
They found an 18% greater horizontal velocity and a 16% greater resultant velocity. That's sort of the overall speed, considering both horizontal and vertical right as they left the block. In fact, the average takeoff velocity for the long step was 4.5 meters per second. The paper actually calls this an excellence value for relay starts. Like it's a benchmark for truly elite performance in this specific skill.
4.5 meters? That sounds incredibly fast for leaving a stationary block.
It really is.
Yeah.
And if you want an analogy, think about volleyball players.
Okay.
The way they take that horizontal run-up, that approach phase, before they jump to spike or block, it's the same principle. That forward momentum they build allows them to jump higher. The long step in swimming is kind of like that approach run. It generates horizontal speed that gets converted into a more powerful launch.
That makes perfect sense. Building speed on the runway before takeoff.
Exactly. Plus, there's another factor, that separated track start foot position used in the long step. Most swimmers are already very familiar with that stance from their individual start.
Oh, right, because many individual starts use that staggered stance now.
Correct. So they might just be more comfortable, more stable, and able to generate more power pushing off from that familiar separated position compared to the parallel feet in the short step.
Lots of converging factors pointing to the long step then. More time to push, builds more momentum, allows higher forces, results in faster takeoff, and uses a familiar stance.
That sums it up pretty well, yeah.
Okay, that's the technique difference. But the study also looked into something else really interesting. Gender differences in these starts. What did they find there?
Right, they analyzed performance differences between male and female swimmers too. And, well, consistent with what we generally see in swimming due to physiological differences, there was an overall gender gap.
Okay, how did that look?
Female swimmers, regardless of which technique they used, had slightly longer 5-meter times, about 0.11 seconds longer on average, and that gap widened more significantly by the 10-meter mark, where they were about 0.69 seconds longer than the males.
Okay, so a noticeable difference, especially further out. But where in the start does that difference mainly come from? Is it the final push, the flight, the entry?
This was a really crucial finding. The performance gap seems to be rooted primarily in the very early part of the block movements, like during that preparatory step phase itself.
Oh, interesting. So not necessarily the final push-off.
Less so in the final push, it seems. The data showed female swimmers had slower horizontal velocities during the step, anywhere from 16 to 22% slower at key moments. They also produced lower peak horizontal forces, about 19% less, during that leg step action.
Okay.
And their timing was different, too. Key moments like when the rear foot left the block or when their arms started swinging forward powerfully tended to happen slightly later for the female swimmers.
So it's more about the initial acceleration and timing on the block rather than just raw strength in the final leg drive.
That seems to be the key takeaway. And here's a fascinating nuance they pointed out. Despite those differences in the early phase velocities and forces, males did not significantly outperform females in the relative peak forces generated during the final leg extension push-off.
Wait, so the final push force, relatively speaking, was similar?
Relatively similar, yeah. Which really highlights how important those initial movements are, generating that early momentum, the timing of the arm swing, getting that horizontal velocity going. That seems to be where the main performance difference between genders originates in the relay start.
That's a really profound insight. It suggests maybe training should really focus on optimizing those first movements, that initial power generation.
Absolutely, it shifts the focus a bit.
Did the paper suggest why those early phase differences might exist?
They touched upon potential reasons, like average differences in upper body strength, which could influence how much kinetic energy you can get from that powerful arm swing that helps initiate the start. But they really emphasized that the timing and the initial velocity generation seem to be the most critical factors differentiating the genders in these early start phases.
Okay, so the science makes a strong case for the long step technique. But, putting something into practice with elite athletes, that's often the hard part. Are there practical challenges or things coaches and swimmers need to think about if they want to adopt the long step?
Oh, for sure. Translating lab results or biomechanical analysis into effective, consistent performance always has hurdles. One definite challenge with the long step is just foot placement precision.
How so?
Well, after you make that big dynamic step across the block, you need to land your front foot in a very specific spot on the front edge to get the best push-off. And that landing zone is pretty small. Doing that accurately every single time at high speed, it's tricky.
Yeah, I can picture that. One big movement, then you need pinpoint accuracy right at the end. What about balance? Does the bigger movement make it less stable?
It certainly can, yeah. The amplitude of the movement is larger, and taking off from that separated track start position inherently requires more balance and stability than pushing off with parallel feet. So swimmers really need to master the movement, feel comfortable and stable. Otherwise, they might hesitate or not be able to apply their full force. It demands a lot of accuracy and just familiarity.
Makes sense. Practice, practice, practice. Now, what about the relay timing itself? You mentioned the long step takes slightly longer on the block. Could that mess up the changeover timing with the incoming swimmer? Like increase the risk of a false start and early takeoff?
That's a really common concern and a valid point to consider.
Yeah.
Minimizing that changeover time without DQing is critical in relays. So yes, the slightly longer block time for the long step could potentially complicate that precise timing. However, the researchers in this paper actually suggested that this concern might be a bit overrated. They cited some previous research indicating that while block time is a factor, its overall impact on the total relay exchange time might not be as huge as sometimes assumed, perhaps because other factors compensate.
Interesting. So maybe the speed gain from the better start outweighs any slight increase in block time, potentially.
That seems to be the implication, yeah. But it's definitely something teams need to work on, coordinating that timing perfectly if they adopt the long step.
So bringing this all together then, for you, the swimmer, the coach listening, or even just the curious fan trying to understand the sport better, what's the main message here? It sounds like the science points one way, but actually getting there takes work.
Absolutely. The science strongly suggests the long step offers a real measurable advantage in speed. But it's not a magic bullet you can just switch to overnight.
Yeah.
It requires dedicated, specific training to nail the mechanics, the footwork, the stability, the timing. It's about taking these biomechanical insights and then putting in the hours to develop that skill meticulously.
Right. It's an opportunity for an edge, but one you have to earn through practice.
Definitely.
This has been incredibly insightful, really digging into the nuts and bolts of what makes a fast start. So to recap, the long step technique seems to be the winner for relay starts, giving swimmers an edge mainly because it allows more time to apply force, builds greater horizontal momentum before takeoff, and results in significantly higher takeoff velocities.
Slide on.
And we also learned that those performance differences we sometimes see between genders and starts seem to originate mostly in the very early phases, the initial movements on the block, the timing, the early velocity generation rather than just the final push.
Yeah, a really key nuance there about where the differences lie. It highlights how complex even a seemingly simple action like a dive start actually is.
Absolutely. So for you, the curious learner tuning in, hopefully this deep dive gives you a bit of a shortcut to understanding some pretty cutting-edge science in swimming. And you can sort of imagine, right, applying these kinds of biomechanical principles, thinking about optimizing movement that could apply in so many areas, not just sport.
True. The principles of efficient force generation are quite universal.
And if you do want to get into all the specific data, the charts, the nitty-gritty, the full article again is What is the Best Step Technique for Swimming Relay Starts? In the Journal of Sports Science and Medicine. Definitely worth a read if you want to go even deeper.
For sure.
We really hope this deep dive sparked some aha moments for you, maybe gave you a new appreciation for the incredible detail involved in elite swimming.
Hope so.
And please remember to follow the Deep Dive channel, turn on those notifications so you don't miss our next exploration. We'll be tackling more fascinating topics just like this